Hello, in this video we're going to take a look at section 5.5, solving multi-step linear equations. This is actually very similar and it's an extension of section 5.4 where we were solving equations that just had two steps. The textbook calls this solving equations of the form ax plus b equals cx plus d, but that's a bit of a mouthful, and most other textbooks will just call these multi-step equations. As you'll see from this, the most important thing to keep in mind here is taking things slow, writing out each step as a full equation, and just going one step at a time. If you look at this equation on the screen, it looks awful, but you'll see that the process for solving this, if you take things one step at a time, each individual step isn't so bad. I'm expecting that you already have some familiarity with section 5.1, which is simplifying expressions, and section 5.4, which is solving two-step equations. If you don't feel comfortable with those sections yet, go ahead and check out the videos that I've recorded on them and make sure to read through the textbook. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. The process for solving these equations is going to be something that you can break down into three phases. The very first phase is to apply some of the strategies that you learned from section 5.1 to simplify expressions. We're going to simplify the left and the right side of this equation separately. We're not going to cross the line of the equal sign in the middle, so I'm going to go ahead and do what I usually do, if you've seen the other video, and draw a line where the equal sign is going all the way down. So first I'm going to take a look at the left side and see if I can simplify that by distributing through parentheses or combining like terms. Well, I see some parentheses there, and as we learned in section 5.1, you can take the term that's in front of the parentheses, touching the parentheses, and multiply it by each term inside the parentheses. So let's go ahead and do that. 2 times 4x will give us 8x. And then 2 times 5 will give us a 10. Positive times positive is a positive 10. Now that negative 3x is not inside the parentheses, so I'm just going to bring it on down. And you'll notice that we're going to do a lot of that when solving these equations. There are going to be terms and numbers that we didn't do anything with, and we're just going to bring them down. And I always want to end each step with a full equation, so I'll put down my equal sign, and on the right side I'm going to see if there's any simplifying I can do. Well, 2x and the minus 11, can't combine those. You might think that you could combine the 2x with the 8x and the negative 3x, but we actually can't because they're on separate sides of the equal sign. So I'm just going to bring it down, the 2x minus the 11. And like I said, you are going to be, a lot of the times, just bringing things down and not doing much with them. And you might think, I don't need to actually rewrite that whole thing, but do yourself a favor and actually rewrite it. Make sure that you end with a full equation at the end of each step. The benefit of that is it's going to help you compartmentalize the steps so that each individual step won't be so bad, and every time you finish a step you can kind of think about it as a brand new equation and just pick up where you left off. So let's move on to the combining like terms. Looks like on the left side I do have some like terms that I can combine. The 8x and the negative 3x can be put together. So those are like terms, different signs, so I will subtract them. 8x minus 3x will give me a 5x. And then that plus 10 is a straggler. He's going to come right down. Can't combine the plus 10 with the 5x. Doesn't have an x. And again, on the right side, I'm just going to rewrite the 2x minus 11. Don't give in to the temptation of not bringing down stuff. You always want to end with a full equation. So here's my step 2, my combining like terms. So I distributed and I combined like terms. And at this stage I have a full equation. 5x plus 10 equals 2x minus 11. And the nice thing about this is if you need to take a break, just mentally even, just take a deep breath, go up and grab a snack, talk to some friends, and then come back to this, you can pick up right where you left off. And you really want to get into that mentality of treating each step as its own little mini problem. And if you do that, it's a lot easier to do these questions. Let's move on to the second phase. Well, one thing that makes this equation different from the equations that we saw in section 5.4 is that you have variables on the left and the right side. Remember, variables are what we call those letters that are standing in for numbers that we don't know. Usually when you have variables on both sides, you're going to want to try to take care of that early on in the process. People tend to try to avoid this phase, and it ends up leading to problems later on. If you have variables on the left and right side, try to make sure that you're taking care of that before you start canceling out numbers on both sides. It's going to make your life a lot easier. So if you have variables on both sides, you're going to pick one of them to cancel out by adding or subtracting the whole term from both sides. I'm not dividing in this step, I'm adding or subtracting. I'm going to pick one of those two variables, and I think I am going to go with the 2x here. So since I have a 5x right here and a 2x right here, I'm going to cancel out the 2x just because I think that's going to make things easier. It's smaller, so I'll end up with a positive coefficient, but you could really cancel out either one and get the same answer. So to cancel it out, I'm going to subtract. Because the 2x is positive, I'll do a minus 2x. Notice I'm writing the minus and the variable x here. I'm going to do it on the other side of the equation too. Now, other side of the line, I'm going to line it up with the other variable, minus 2x. 5x minus 2x is going to give me a 3x, so I can put that underneath. That plus 10 is just going to come right on down. So again, bringing things down when I can't do anything with them. And then 2x minus 2x, of course, cancels out. But I do want to bring down my equal sign and my negative 11. So things that are important, I'm not dividing by the 2, I'm actually subtracting by the whole term, 2x. So this is one of the few times where you can, when you're canceling stuff out on both sides, write the x, write the variable. Alright, now if you stop and take a deep breath and look at what we have here, 3x plus 10 equals negative 11, this is a two-step equation. So phase 3 is going to be the two-step equation that we know and love from section 5.4. You're going to look at the side with your variable, whichever side that happens to be, and try to cancel out the numbers on that side. So always start with your addition and subtraction first, as you might recall. The number that's touching your variable, the coefficient, is the last to go. But I always want to cancel out the numbers on the same side as x. X is on the left side here, so I've got the 3 and the 10, and I'm going to get rid of the 10 first because there's a plus sign between that 10 and that x. So to cancel out a plus 10, I'm going to do a minus 10. Do it on the other side too, of course. And when I resolve this, when I add and subtract top to bottom, the 3x can just come right down because it's not being added or subtracted to anything. Positive 10 minus 10 cancels out. And then negative 11 minus 10, both signs are the same, so in this case I will add them to get 21. And always keep the sign when you have the same sign there, so it's going to be a negative 21. Last but not least, the very last part of this is to divide by the coefficient of x. That 3 touching the x is being multiplied with x, so I'm going to cancel it out by dividing by 3. And do it on the other side as well. 3 divided by 3 cancels out, of course. Really it becomes a 1, but as you know from simplifying, 1x is the same as x. You just write it as x. And then negative 21 divided by 3, when you have a negative divided by a positive, you'll have a negative. And 21 divided by 3 is 7. So my final answer here is x equals negative 7. So to summarize, multi-step equations, the ones that you see in section 5.5, are rather long. It's a long process to solve these, but if you break it into steps and end each step with a full equation, and you'll notice that there's actually 5 steps in this one, but we ended each step with a full equation, then each individual step isn't too bad. The 3 phases are to try to simplify the left and right side completely. After that, if you notice you have variables on both the left and the right side, try to pick one by canceling out the whole term with an addition or subtraction. And then the last phase is a 2-step equation that you know from section 5.4. The only time that you will be dividing is that very last step. Every other step is either an addition or subtraction, or if you're distributing through parentheses, that might be a multiplication.